This is the Neptune 3 by Elegoo. It's about to be released around the same time as this video, and it has a lot of changes compared to the previous Neptune 2S that I reviewed a couple of months ago. It's also priced really competitively, and that makes it a very affordable printer, both as a second or third printer or for a complete beginner. But what's it like then? I'm glad you asked. Let's get on with it. The first obvious change isn't actually obvious by looking at the printer, it's obvious by building the printer. If you had a Neptune 2 or 2S, you will remember the build process. It's actually pretty much identical to the build process on an Ender 3 or an Ender 3 V2, but that is all consigned to history now, as any Meccano style 3D printer kit really should be. I'm glad to see the back of printers that you have to assemble from scratch. It's a hangover from the old days, and it's a bit weird if you think about it. You wouldn't buy a new camera or TV or food mixer and expect to have to put it together from a bag of parts. We have entered a new era, the era of some assembly required and not all assembly required, and that is good. So first thing you should do after building any bed slinger type printer and tightening the eccentric nuts and making sure that nothing wobbles is to level the bed. This is the normal process of just turning the wheels underneath. Oh. This printer has no wheels. I mean, they weren't in the box, they don't have to be added, they just don't exist. Bed leveling is automatic. If I show you the sensor, okay, no sensor. I'm mainly just adding drama here. This is not the first printer to use load cells and the nozzle to create a mesh. It's not really bed leveling anymore, it's more just creating a mesh and then printing with that now, isn't it? I suppose the bed is assumed to be sort of level because it's got solid mounts. But it might be the first printer that you have seen a review on that uses this technology, depending on how many reviews you watch. The deal is that the nozzle pushes gently, very gently against the bed, and the strain gauge that I'll show you in a minute deforms, and that is how the machine determines where the bed actually is. If you're wondering how accurate this method of leveling is, there's two answers. The first is, I'm not actually sure. The second is, I tested it. I made a test ring that's 0.9mm high, so it's 4 layers when sliced, and I repeatedly printed it to see how consistent the zeroing of the nozzle is on the bed. And it seems okay. I certainly put it through its paces. I tested for a couple of things really with this leveling method. Firstly, is it repeatable? Secondly, does it drift with time? Because that's something strain gauges tend to do, especially as they warm up. Initially, I did think this was happening, but I later couldn't reproduce it, so this is why I have a stack of these discs. I did a lot of testing here. The results were confusing me for a while, and I think the texture of the bed was affecting my ability to figure out the reproducibility of leveling, if that makes sense. So eventually, I kind of lost my patience. I flipped the bed over onto the naughty side, and after that, you can see the results. If I line up all the rings I printed on that side, you can see they're fairly consistent between successive prints. So while I do have some reservations about the lack of manual override with this leveling system, it does appear that the leveling works at least well enough for day-to-day printing, perhaps better. That will become obvious over time. If you're wondering why I'm being really super critical of this leveling system, it's because it's new, and in the past when it's been implemented, it has been troublesome. Next up, the screen has moved from where the Neptune 2 had it, and you'd be forgiven if you thought that they've used an Ender 3 V2 screen. It does look like an Ender 3 V2 screen when you take it out of the box, but it's actually not. This is a touch screen, thankfully, because I personally hate the encoder dial controls. And it's even connected properly via what I think is an RJ11 connector, which is on a curly phone cable for that retro 80s standing in the hall on the phone because you can't move it vibe. I think this is a huge improvement, not only with this kind of cable, this is the same sort of system as the FL Suns panel that I reviewed recently, but it's also been moved away from under the bed. It might not look as stylish in its current position, but you don't have to fight the bed going back and forth for access when you're mid-print. Hello? One of the big new things, as far as I'm concerned, that, when refined, more about that in a minute, could be a game changer for 3D printing, is this filament sensor. I know the Neptune 2 had one of those, and they're quite common, but watch. Do you see what's happening here? This is not a filament sensor, or rather it is a filament sensor, but it's a movement sensor. You can presumably tell if there's a jam in the filament. Let's test it out. This is a huge feature for me because while I never run out of filament really, jammed extruders, knotted reels and other shenanigans on the other hand are much more common, and I'm hugely excited about this particular sensor. I've actually thought about designing one of these myself in the past, and we'll see how it works in a minute. New features and innovations usually come with a learning curve and a risk, and this is no exception. While pushing PLA and PETG into here is pretty easy, you have to give it quite a firm push, and I found that you literally can't get TPU to go in here. So for some idea why, I opened it up. You could see there's a spring-loaded bearing and an encoder wheel. This is really cool. This is exactly what I expected. This is what I thought about when I thought I would make my own, which I'm lazy so I never got round to, but this was the idea I had. This is why flexible filament though is struggling. But I found that if you cut the TPU to a point and you use extreme persuasion, you can actually load it. Alternatively, you can remove it for TPU printing, and thankfully they have included the option to disable it in the firmware, so you can do that without any problems, but I'd prefer to struggle with it, as TPU is the #1 reason that you need a device like this. So, enough technical stuff, let's talk about the technical stuff. Opening up the base, we can see the same kind of cooling as the Neptune 2 had with this radial fan here, but with I think a bit better cable management and a bit more airflow space. I do like the cable management actually, they've done really well with this. The board? Well, you don't actually need to open up the machine to see the board because there's actually a picture of it in the manual. It's a board I've never seen before, it's brand new. It looks like it's an evolution of the Robin Nano, with non-removable drivers in this case. Of course, it also has the new socket here and the function for the touchscreen that the last version of the ZNP Robin Nano didn't. So how does this machine print? It prints fine. I printed my usual calibration test piece and I didn't get any huge surprises. I don't think it's winning any prizes for the cooling considering that there's 2 fans, but it does manage the overhangs and bridging pretty well. I guess they're small fans after all, but there's other benefits of dual fans, like more even airflow and not having the airflow skewed to one side. I printed this thing with the link down below. It printed absolutely fine second try. This is no fault of the printer, there's just a weak joint that needs more than the standard number of walls, so my recommendation if you go and print this is to use 4 or 5 walls. Here's some other examples of prints, including what was on the SD card. I did test TPU performance against the Neptune 2S, and I found the Neptune 2S is still better. Although the Neptune 3 marginally beats the Ender 3 V2, so it's not a bad result. This machine would be quite suitable for printing flexibles as well as PLA, but it does confuse me a bit, as I thought the Capricorn tubing in the Neptune 2S did nothing, as per my last video. It seems like it's more complicated than that. I'm at a loss as to why there would be different results. We need more testing with Capricorn tubing in the future, and also I would recommend for the small price that you have to pay for Capricorn, just put some in this machine. It will cost you about £6, I think. I suppose the version I have for review has an initial firmware build, and it's fine, but I do have a request, I guess. It would be nice if I could change the Z offset outside of the leveling menu. You can do it while doing a print or while leveling. I don't actually think it's a Z offset, actually. If you think about how a strain gauge would work, I think it's more like a compensation factor. And also, finally, if you could turn off the initial leveling each time so that you can get the bed mesh and the Z offset. You can save the mesh, that is stored, but the Z offset is calculated every print. And if you could stop it from doing that, if you had that option, you could get everything perfect and not have to worry about any kind of funny business with the nozzle or the bed until you need to recalibrate it. This is something the FL Sun Delta does really well, and it works perfectly. I've never had to recalibrate the bed on that printer because it's got, just like this printer, a completely static bed. So I guess I can wrap it up with some final points that I haven't covered. The PEI bed is almost a must-have these days. It's now my absolute favourite bed, as I may have mentioned before, so that makes this model a very attractive choice because it comes with that PEI bed, just as the Neptune 2S did. The handle on the top saves you a print too, and is actually surprisingly useful. Octoprint worked fine when testing it out with no extra steps required. It just ran straight away. Noise levels on this printer are absolutely fine. It's exactly the same as the 2S, which is what you would expect because I think it's actually the same power supply. I'm also glad to see silent drivers this time on all axes, including the extruder. Obviously, they've had to implement this for the mesh bed leveling because that would be quite noisy if it kept having to compensate the Z-axis. So really, I guess to summarize, this machine is it's an evolution of the Neptune 2S, but it is a significant evolution. It's a big jump. There is a lot of new stuff here and a lot of really nice quality of life features. But what do you think about this machine? Will you be happy to convert to or choose a hands-off mesh-based leveling system like this? Do you think the other features that it includes are interesting? Comment below as usual. And I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.